Good afternoon, everybody. This is Lorraine, Alternative Homesteading. I hope everybody's doing well. For all the newcomers, thank you for subscribing, liking, and sharing. It really does help the channel grow, and welcome. I appreciate everybody tuning in, spending some time here. I know everybody's lives are very busy, and you need to make all of your minutes count these days. Everything seems to be taking up so much time, and it's so stressful with the world events. You know, on top of regular life's difficulties, the state of the world, shopping, your everyday chores, being a targeted person really does take its toll on an individual. I really do appreciate all the people that are finally speaking out. You cannot stay silent on this. You're not schizophrenic. You're not mentally ill. You're not paranoid. You're not delusional. The government really is waging a war, a silent war against you and me. And we need to collect evidence and bring this forward, because if you remember, during Nazi Germany, after that allegedly ended, during that time there was a woman named Anne Frank. She was a young girl. She was Jewish, and she was hidden in the walls of a sympathizer's home until the war ended. And while she was there, she came into sexual maturity. She was writing a book. She wrote a diary of her life there. And that book was a required reading for everyone who grew up in my generation. I'm in my 60s. It's called The Diary of Anne Frank. And if you haven't read it, I highly recommend you reading it. The Diary of Anne Frank publicized the atrocities that happened during that time and how she survived. And there were sympathizers that hid the victims, hid the people who were being victimized unnecessarily, the Jews. We're not too far away from that happening. It's actually been happening here in the United States for decades. It's called the Targeted Individual Program, non-investigative subjects, where people are selected by the deep state, by someone you pissed off, someone you disagreed with, who is in a position of authority and power, who knows somebody who can get you into the program. And if they don't know somebody who knows somebody, they will pay to get revenge upon an individual. And they will pay up to $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. You have to remember, folks, that some of these people that you disagree with, they may work for a nonprofit, so that money is not coming out of their pocketbook. They may be receiving funding and granting from the public, so the money's not coming out of their pocket. And you have to understand that there are so many corrupt people out there that sometimes their money was obtained by criminal means, nefarious means. And this has been happening now for decades. So just remember that this will be exposed one day. It always is. It may be a decade from now. It may be a year from now. But it will be exposed. And those associated with it will be exposed. And some of them will die. In fact, some of your perpetrators are already dying. Particularly the ones that do stupid things. They get their names in the papers and stuff. They're no longer useful when they screw up that badly. Right? It's supposed to be covert for a reason. It's supposed to make you and I look like the crazy ones, not them, right? They are the nuts. They are the psychopaths. They are the criminally insane, the histrionics, the useful idiots, the snitches. But I wanted to respond to the video that I posted. It was part 4 of the Gang Stalking Instruction Manual. I received a very long and thoughtful response comment down below the video. You can go over there and see it, but I printed it out because I did want to respond to it. I was going to respond to it privately, but then I decided that I would speak out loud and respond to the different parts of the question publicly. So I'm going to first read the comment, and then I'll reread the comment and add my comments. But before I do that, I will tell you that the criminals have been in my house again, sabotaging fruit, vegetables. They go into my refrigerator and they steal the straws off of my, my little juice boxes and stuff. Yes, I still have juice boxes and protein drinks and stuff with the little plastic straws attached to it, and they steal all the straws. Now, it seems inconsequential, but the point is that somebody's been on the property illegally, criminally trespassing, and illegally entered my house and opened a refrigerator and did something nefarious. I could be on the other side of the property. I could be in another building, and there's always somebody within 30 feet of every target, just so you know. And just because you can't see them doesn't mean they're not there. There is technology that exists to prevent you from seeing them, even if they're right in front of you. They will intentionally blur your vision or create a partial awareness of your surroundings. You'll feel like it's very surreal just for a few moments, and that is because they are crossing your path. Another thing they do in a rural environment is they will cloak, C-L-O-A-K, themselves. You can see the technology on YouTube videos. This technology has been about for decades. These cloaking devices and clothing will make them virtually invisible and blend into the environment. This technology is used by the military when they're in jungles, right? So you can look that up. I'm not going to go into more detail, but I'm going to thank Jeff. Jeff has his own YouTube channel too. You have to go see it. Jeff is the American guinea pig and cash cow. And how apropos, Jeff. Yes, we are all the targeted people are guinea pigs. We are being used, experimented on in a social engineering program. And I can attest to the fact that, these criminals have to tell you what they're doing. These Satanist losers have to tell you what they're doing before they do it. So with me, they will spray the letter AI in the sky above my house. They'll embed it in the walls. They'll sign the signature AI on the windows of my house, but I cannot see it unless I use a black light. They show me who they are by the symbols that I show you in some of my videos. And I do have testimonies that are online from 2017. My very first testimony was with Ella Free, who took down her website, took down all the testimonies, and disappeared from the planet. Maybe she went to Mars, who knows. But I do have a copy of that testimony for anybody that wants it. It's actually almost 3 hours long. And it was my very first testimony. I have several testimonies with Frank Allen from Targeted, Massachusetts. And I've had several interviews with Romola D from the Everyday Concerned Citizen, and then with Megs, M-E-E-G-S, B as in boy, B. Her testimonies, she was kind enough to include some of my visual evidence And anybody who would like to see those, I can post links to those in, I guess, underneath this video. But Jeff responded as follows. The creeping vines represent the deep state, meaning that it's difficult to extract. He says, I find this interesting. You, Lorraine, have a keen eye. You notice the vandalism. I am Mr. Magoo. I tune out the world. Therefore, I get less vandalism because their terrorism will be wasted on me. You are being punished for your perceptive intelligence. It isn't fair. It's wrong. It's sick. When I notice their crimes, I get more of those specific crimes. They work it into the gang stalking protocol. We all have similar but different programs tailored to our personalities. I have played the game where I ignore certain crimes. Those crimes rarely repeat themselves. I also see a frowning face in the etching. What he's referring to is the etching in one of my last videos, part 4. If you read part 4 towards the end of the video, if you want to fast forward, I presented evidence of vandalism in a white enamel water basin. And these etchings are very symbolic. I do recommend you're going to look at that. So his response is, those crimes... I'm sorry. He says, I also see a frowning face in the etching. Sheriff Paul Hayes should turn in his badge. A Sheriff Paul Hayes is our local sheriff. Yeah, he should turn in his badge. But guess what, Jeff? He's retiring, and we will have a new sheriff. And the new sheriff actually currently works there. He's been a deputy there. And he's younger. I believe he's in his 30s. And I believe Sheriff Hayes is in his 60s, like me. So he's been around the block, and he's been a state trooper and all of that stuff. And he's lived in this small town. And he's doing what the small town folks do, protect each other. But you're right, he should turn in his badge. He has violated his oath. And through a FOIA request, I did actually obtain his signed oath of office. He said, oh, good point. If you don't like someone, don't associate with them. It should be that simple. He said, I tried that with my cousins. My cousins couldn't deal with me ignoring them. They took part in my stalking. And this is really important. He says, bullies insist on being noticed. They crave it. I know what has been said about me since you asked. And I will make some comments. We'll go back on this. So I don't want to interrupt what he's saying. He says, I know what has been said about me since you asked. He says, I'm a child molester, a lie. I'm a misogynist, a lie. I'm a terrorist, a lie. I'm mentally ill, a lie, but give it time. The gang stalking program is effective. They let you know through passive-aggressive hints. I've also had neighbors shout my quote-unquote crimes in my face. They aren't willing to listen to information to the contrary. People are so stupid. If you show them a badge, they'll believe anything. This is a quote from Karen Stewart. She's a retired NSA intelligence analyst. She worked there for 28 years, and she's great. So she said this. She says, people are so stupid. If you show them a badge, they'll believe anything. The new war is an information war. It's a battle for the mind. That's correct. Our government has been after our brains since MK Ultra, which was 1953 to 1973. Bush and Obama funded the Human Brain Project, quote unquote. Say what you want about Trump. I doubt Trump funded such an insidious program. I've had the emotions beamed at me. They turned me from a health-minded massage therapist into an angry hermit. I refuse to become violent, but I can understand how others have gone that route. And you're right about Myron May. He was intelligent and compassionate. He was targeted because he tried to save a mother's child from human trafficking. And for the record, May didn't actually kill anyone. I don't think he was aiming to kill. And then he asked for a copy of the Gang Stalking manual, which I did send to him, and I know you received it. So thank you so much, Jeff, for this very thoughtful response and commentary, and for sharing your own personal experiences. I highly recommend going to his YouTube channel, because what he does is he uses his cute little dog, cute little white fluffy puffy dog, and he highlights these gang stalkers and their routines, how they treat him. But he does it in such a humorous way. He adds some really cool music, and then he interweaves quotes and somebody just passed by, quotes and interview clips, like with Karen Stewart and Robert Duncan, who are very well known in this community as having spoken out against the technology and the stalking. But thank you so much for saying that I'm being punished for my perceptive intelligence. It isn't fair. It is wrong. Yes, it is wrong. But I'm going to say this because most people will never meet me. The people who are subscribed, that are my friends, my long-term friends that are viewing this, you know me for a long time. I mean, some of my friends have lasted literally since I'm a teenager. I am still friends with some ex-boyfriends from when I was a teenager. And obviously they know me. They know who I am. They know who the person I am and supposed to be. And half of them do have brains. You know, they have eyes to see. They know what's going on. One is actually a retired police officer. He knows what's going on. But he's of my generation. And the police of my generation, generally speaking, were not as corrupt as these 20 and 30-year-olds now that are being trained by the FBI. And someone commented on a video the other day, actually chimed in as a retired police officer. And they basically stated under this video, if a police ever shows up at your front door, do not answer, do not speak to them. If they approach you on the street, you do not talk. You just stay silent, period. Do not engage at all. This is from a retired police officer. And it's a female. And she added that there are jurisdictions that are rogue and corrupt. And they are operating like paramilitary. They actually intentionally hire certain personality types that are, how do I phrase it? It's of the criminal mindset, the bully mindset. But for the people that know me, and because, Jeff, you've never met me in person, but I have always been a very perceptive person, even as a child. In fact, as a child, I'd always thought that there was something wrong with me because I was so sensitive. I knew what other people were thinking, and their behavior sometimes were very different than what I thought they were, how they were as an individual. And I remember there were times my mother introducing me to people, like colleagues and stuff, and I would either get a very sick feeling over somebody that I felt had bad intentions, like it's literally sick to my stomach, or I would become very agitated, knowing that there was something not right about them. And I'll give you a quick example. I grew up Roman Catholic. I'm not anymore. I consider myself to be a Reformed Roman Catholic. I have fully recovered from that experience. But I did go to Sunday school and church and all of those things. And then, on Sunday you'd have to go to confession, into the confessional. And you go into this dark box and like reveal your quote unquote sins, like, you know, if you didn't go to sleep on time, if you didn't listen to your parents, you know, whatever little thing that a child would say to a priest. But I remember this one time I got that creepy, sick feeling about this priest. And then there was another time when one of these priests, I don't know if it's the same one, was talking with my mother. And my mother was quite a beautiful, vivacious, voluptuous. She looked like a young Elizabeth Taylor without those blue eyes. Like she had very dark, my mother had dark brown eyes, but she was quite striking. And men would just watch her, follow her, yell out at her on the street, whistle at her. That's what men did back in the day. But that was my mom. And I remember this priest just always like looking at my mother like in a way that just felt very uncomfortable to me. But as a child, I didn't have the words to describe what it was that was happening. I just knew that something wasn't right there, and that he had feelings for her in a way that perhaps a priest shouldn't have for, you know, a divorced single mom. But yes, I will say also that, you know, at a very young age, I studied metaphysics. And for the people that know, yes, I've studied numerology, astrology. I've actually taught classes. I know how to read a birth chart very well. In fact, when the criminals broke into my house, they literally went through every one of my more than 300 astrology and numerology books and either marked, they did something to each and every book, even if it was vintage. I taught classes. I've written papers. I'm actually published in some magazines and astrological circles. I've attended a medical astrology coursework. I've studied shamanic healing, mindfulness meditation, hypnosis, and Reiki. I can read the tarot, and I have been hired in the past as a psychic. Yes, folks, I have been hired and paid very good money as a psychic. And I have found missing things and missing animals. And I have, in the past, been able to remote view. What that means is that I could be here, let's say, and an image or an event will flash before my mind's eye. And with accuracy, see an event that happens that will then appear on the news, or that has happened in the news. And in the past, before all this targeting, I had frequently precognitive dreams. What that means is I would have dreams that would come true, it would like almost be like a vision in the future. Some of them would be a little disturbing, some of them would be a little pleasant. Most of them were a warning about someone or something, like a train crash that I witnessed sitting down at my kitchen table. And then when I went to work at the gym, walking on the treadmill, that train crash was flashed on the local news. I got so upset that I ran out of the gym home, called my mother on the phone. So, yes, Jeff, I have perceptive intelligence. I would imagine that there are quite a few people in the targeted community like myself, quite a few women. And in fact, Derek Robinson from PAX International years ago started a psychic, a light workers group. And he invited, and this was back in 2017 or 2018. I was fairly new in the community. But he invited me in. I had no idea how he would even know anything like this about me. But he invited in about 15 people. And we would kind of brainstorm and talk about these metaphysical things. I mean, I just got so busy with having to move and stuff that I left the group. Actually, when they started talking about UFOs, I was like, okay, I'm checking out here. I don't need to talk about UFOs. But yes, they do target very intuitive and perceptive women and men, not only in this community, but in the general public. Because, you know, children are naturally intuitive. Children are naturally psychic. These are God's gifts to people. These are gifts. They're between our central nervous system and our third eye, the pineal gland. And of course, these criminals, you know, these ABC organizations, they've been testing and studying this for decades, you know, with LSD experimentations, etc. They try to alter. They don't want people to know and then want to discredit the people that are having quote-unquote visions or intuitive hunches or precognitive dreams. They don't want anyone tapping into their human nature. This is why our waters are fluoridated. The skies are being sprayed. They want to dumb down the public, literally. They don't want us to know. They think these elite, first of all, if anybody knows, how did they come to be called elite? What, just because they have money? I mean, why are they called elite? I call them the deletes. D-E-L-E-T-E, because that's what we need to do with psychopaths. Because, you know, when there's that much inbreeding, it does alter their genetics. They think that all that inbreeding is keeping it, you know, pure. But some of the smartest people on the planet have been interbred. Right? And you mentioned about bullies insist on being noticed, they crave it. Well, you know, narcissists crave attention. They want the attention. And histrionics, people with histrionic personality. The histrionics, they're the ones that always create the little chaos. They're very dramatic and they want to suck you into their own chaos. They want to get noticed. They want to draw attention to them. And I want to address a topic about how narcissists isolate the victim. And how through being a target, being a targeted individual, that we are isolating. We are being isolated. And why? Okay, I'll tell you why. First of all, we are a social engineering program. Anybody that has performed any kind of master's or doctoral level research knows that you have to have a control group. Right? You have a control group. You've got your experiment, right? And you can't allow... Let's say you're in the lab, right? You're in the lab. So you've got your control group on one side. So that control group is not getting all the nasty stuff that the other test subjects are getting. So then the other test subjects in the lab, they're getting all the nasty stuff. But they don't want the non-test subjects in, you know, with the test subjects. that would just ruin, that would ruin the outcome. It would not be pure. It would infect the research. So that's why targeted individuals are isolated. They're performing research on us. And their research involves carefully orchestrating our environment between the microwaves, the radiation, the vandalism, the thefts, the criminal stalkers, the neighbors. They have to control everything. That's another issue too. It's about control. It's definitely about control. But because this is a social engineering program and we are test subjects for their artificial intelligence, for their brain initiative, they need to isolate the victims so that they can perform their experiments without interference. And also that interference, let's say it's a friend or a family member that is helping us, right? That's helping us, interferes with their research. Not only does it interfere with their research, but that friend or family member that views what is happening to us physically, emotionally, to our property, they can validate what's happening to us. When my mother would visit, she could validate that my pets were being harmed. She could validate that my gorgeous house and property were being vandalized. I would show her. And of course she believed it. She knew I was meticulous with my flower beds, my garden, my house. In spite of having so many cats, in spite of having a home business, in spite of being a divorced single mom who worked 4 jobs at one time. But they don't want anyone to validate your experience. They don't want anyone pulling up and seeing that you got burn marks on your face and ask, where did you get that from? They don't want anyone to ask, why? Why is your cat limping? How come the rear end of your cat has burn marks all over it? Why? They don't want anyone to know. They don't want anyone to see what's going on. And that's why they have to co-opt everyone. The sheriff's department, wherever you shop. I mean, even Lowe's with my deck. Uh-oh. You know, I've got 4 roosters now. I had 2, but unfortunately we hatched 2 more. And yeah, so I named my other rooster Rand Paul, and then my other rooster is Edward Snowden. So if I find that I have another rooster, my next rooster is going to be Trey Gowdy. And for the targeted folks out there, you're gonna laugh. But anyway, I digress. It's just a bit of sense of humor. But isolating the victim, they want full control. And because we are an experiment, they don't want anybody interfering with their experiment. They don't want anybody validating what's happening to each targeted person. They don't want anybody seeing that we're being tortured. They don't want anybody seeing and possibly going to the newspaper or to an avenue that they are not in control of, so that the information is leaked out. That's why they isolate the victim. And another reason is because once the victim is isolated and they're performing all these torturous things, it really does take its toll on a person. If I weren't as busy as I am with these animals, which take up so much of my time, and the property and the land and stuff, it really gets to you. I have had my whole life lots of friends. lots of acquaintances, friendly. You know, I like to say to myself and stuff, creative person. I've had multiple businesses that I've created, self-employed. I've taught classes. So for me to be in the middle of nowhere and not having a lot of people to speak to, it is very different life than what I had. I mean, of course, I really don't need a lot of people around me. If I did, I would not have removed to a remote rural location anyway. But back in New Jersey, because some people have asked, well, do you miss New Jersey? No, I don't miss New Jersey. I don't. What I do miss, I'll tell you what I do miss. I miss my house. I had a beautiful house that I renovated from top to bottom. If I could have taken that house and moved it here, I'd be very happy. I also miss Wegmans, the grocery store. Wegmans was literally within walking distance of my house, and I miss that. I miss some of the conveniences. And the fact that some of my friends were more local than they are now, obviously. But that's it. No, I don't miss New Jersey. No. New Jersey was incredibly expensive. My property taxes were up to $10,000 a year. And everything that you did in New Jersey required a permit. It got to the point when I was selling my house, I had a basketball hoop on my driveway for, I don't know, maybe 15 years. And they almost weren't going to allow that to be grandfathered in. They were now asking people to apply for a permit for a basketball hoop. Yeah. Crazy stuff there. So no, I'm not interested. There were too many people in close proximity. I saw what happened during Hurricane Sandy. The people were like nutso. So thank you so much, Jeff, for your very thoughtful response and for also creating your videos. I mean, I highly recommend, if you have some extra time, going to Jeff, the American Guinea Pig and Cash Cow on YouTube and see some of his videos and his evidence. And, you know, he sheds some humor and adds some music to it. It's a little, you know, fun. And for the record, because thank you for mentioning what people have been saying about you. I'll tell you that my neighbor in New Jersey, who I'd lived next to for more than 20 years, and I told my mother this when she was alive. I was gardening, and my neighbor and I said something to each other. I don't remember what it was. I think it was something they were doing to my gate. They started to do weird things, and I didn't understand why. I had no idea that they were involved or had been contacted. But anyway, my neighbor, Andy, turned to me, and he called me a skinny little whore. Yes, he called me a skinny little whore. And I was like, what did you say? I said, could I go inside and get my phone so I could record that and give it to the police? And he just shut his mouth. And I called my mother. I said, you won't believe what Andy just said to me. And I repeated to her what he said. She said, Andy said that to you? I said, yeah. I said, where would he get something like that from? And we were like shocked. So evidently, I was a skinny little whore. Because I was a divorced single woman. And I will admit, folks, I mean, at the time I was dating a young guy. So what? So I was like, they named me the skinny little whore. And what they did, I guess, to reinforce that is they would throw pussy willows in my yard. Okay, little pussy willows in my yard. And then what they do is take sticks from my trees and puncture a hole in the trunk and stick the branch into the tree. So that was like, you know, a hole, like a stick in a hole, like a penis, whatever. So I was the skinny little whore. So they must have been spreading rumors that I was some whore because the only divorced single woman on the block, right? And I guess they could spread that stupid stuff there. And here in Kentucky, there were actually, or this is what I heard through Chief Damon Jones when he had been here and performed some research. He said that the people around here called me a witch, W-I-T-C-H, like a witch. Now, this is clearly a projection because the witches, the Freemason, Illuminati, Eastern Star witches that perform rituals on my property and leave their ritual devices are actually doing that. I'm not the witch. They are. But that's the projection. So, you know, in a community like this, to call somebody a witch, like that's a big deal since these are alleged Bible belters, right? These are all the hypocrites that claim to go to church, but they're stalking their neighbors and throwing stuff on their property and shooting weapons and stalking their Facebook pages. But yeah, so those are the two narratives that I can think of that I have, that I'm a witch and I'm a skinny little whore. So take that to the bank, guys. But here I am. I'm just like feeding chickens all day long and and cats. So you're right. They are not willing to listen to information that's the contrary. And with regard to Myron May, that's another tragedy. But he's not the only one. There are others. From what I understand from other people, the couple of names, if I mention them, sometimes you get flagged for naming the man who, I guess they call him the Batman guy with the theater. But that's another topic for another day. But anyway, this is Lorraine Alternative Homesteading. And thank you so much for your comments and questions. And I hope I answered them and provided a little bit more information. And right here, this rooster right here, this is a rooster. That's Edward Snowden. Ed, cock-a-doodle-doo? No. There is Rand Paul over there. He was cock-a-doodle-dooing this morning. Right, handsome dude? There he goes. But anyway, I hope everybody's having a good day. And I'll talk to you in the next video.